Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining this session on Windows Resiliency. I'd love for the room to be empty. You'd all think this is a solved problem, but we got some good announcements for you here today about new tools and new ways of tackling and making sure Windows is really resilient. I'm joined today by two friends from the Windows team, Kevin and Aaron, who will come up here and talk, and Rob of Intune fame. And a special thank you to Tom from Trend Micro, who's joining us, a close partner who's working with us on Windows Resiliency. My name is Kristian Andaker, and I'm responsible for the Windows Resiliency initiative across Microsoft, so across all these teams. We announced this initiative at Ignite 2024. Some of you may remember. I sat you on stage last year. And the feedback that we were collecting from customers told us that the thing to focus on is change. Whenever you have a root cause analysis you're doing, right? You're used to this. Every time you ask why did that happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen? At the end, you always arrive at the root cause, that is something changed. Could be code in the operating system, could be code in the apps or the drivers that run on top of it, could be the processes in your teams or how people work. And what we are seeing is that because of security and AI, probably increasingly because of AI, there is so much change going on in all our customers' organizations and in our products that resiliency has become an even more important priority than it was for us in the past. And so that's why we're making a really concerted, deep investment in this area. We're taking a really deep, broad view to this problem for Windows. So the solutions we'll be talking about today, they apply for Windows on laptops or on servers in data centers or in Windows 365, et cetera, anywhere Windows runs. We invest in this area in three buckets, three things that we're aiming to help you with. And this is the cheat sheet for the whole session. At the bottom there, you can see everything that's new that we haven't talked about publicly before the Ignite conference. And don't worry, we're going to go through them all. They won't just disappear from the slide. It's not the last mention. Preventing incidents, obviously, but it's not like that's something new. Every month we release an update for Windows, and it fixes things and makes things better. And we've been doing that for decades, and it's been working well. Windows today is significantly more reliable and resilient than it was 20 years ago. I hope anybody who used Windows 20 years ago would agree with me. But there's a lot more we can do. And the most impactful thing that we can do, and where we're focusing here for preventing incidents, is to work with all the partners that build on top of Windows, and in particular those who write drivers in the kernel, to help work with those partners and help ensure that reliability of the third-party code on Windows goes up a significant notch. And so Kevin will join me soon and talk about that. For managing incidents when they occur, the second bucket, we have a set of tools that'll make that a little easier. You'll be able to keep your users productive with something called the Windows 365 Reserve, essentially give users a short-term temporary cloud PC while they can't use their primary machine. We have a new support offering that makes it easier for you to get any issue that you're working with directly to Windows engineering, to people who write the code in Windows for them to investigate it. And the third new thing we're announcing here today is that Intune and Azure Portal for Windows Server VMs will be able to show you what Windows machines are not working. Something we haven't had in the past, and pretty fundamental. You'll be able to see machines that can't boot Windows and act on them. And then we have a digital signage mode we're adding to Windows, which will avoid Windows error messages and screens and such showing up on big public displays where they don't belong. But I'd say the biggest area where we're building new tools for you to use is recovery. Most of the tools for Windows recovery that are available today, they're 25 years old. And a lot has changed in the world since. Like cloud management products, or even the ability to manage a machine over the network, novel concepts. And so we're reinventing our recovery tools with all those changes in the world in mind, and we can really do a lot to make them better, as you will see. There are a lot of mechanisms in Windows already today to help ensure that drivers run reliably. And there are a lot of great third parties out there writing really high-quality driver code. But it's never enough. We're always going to keep adding more guardrails inside the kernel to make sure things can't crash, or that they have less impact when things crash. But even more importantly, we're doing a lot of work to reduce the number of kernel mode drivers that are needed on Windows systems, both by enabling partners to write their code in user mode instead, where if it crashes, it doesn't take down the machine, it only takes down the app. And also enabling partners to not need to have their own driver at all by making the drivers that ship with Windows much more capable. So let's talk through what we're doing there a little bit more in detail. Welcome to the stage, Kevin. And thank you for sharing what we're doing with the Windows driver ecosystem.
Good afternoon. I'm excited to share how we are working with partners to help prevent incidents from occurring in your environments. My team works with our OEM partners to build secure and reliable Windows PCs. And we also team up with security ISVs that provide endpoint protection and anti-malware solutions. As you're all very aware, last year an update from a security product caused a major outage. And since then, we have teamed up with our partners to have an improved and increased focus on resiliency. Today, I have two updates to share on this effort. First is an evolution of our Microsoft Virus Initiative, or MVI program. This is where we work with security partners to help them become compatible, performant, and resilient on your Windows devices. With MVI 3.0, we introduced new requirements for security and reliability. Every member of our program must commit to safe deployment practices. That means their updates are gradual, with deployment rings and monitoring for health and safety. Partners also conduct extensive compatibility testing with each of our Windows releases so we can have a safe deployment of those updates that keep your devices up to date. And we coordinate with partners on incident response. So if there are future issues, we can engage quickly and work together to mitigate them. Each of these steps helps increase the resilience of security solutions used today, but we aren't stopping there. There's been a fundamental challenge in building security solutions. They've needed to operate deep in the Windows kernel, where any bug or unexpected error could lead to a crash. We are addressing that by creating the Windows Endpoint Security Platform. WESP introduces new capabilities that are allowing security products to run outside of the kernel in user mode, just as most apps do. Rather than having each endpoint security app create their own visibility and control points for the operating system, Windows is providing safe user mode interfaces that they can use for their monitoring and their protection. WESP is currently in private preview, where we've been deeply engaged with our MVI partners to define and build this new approach. I do want to take a minute to acknowledge the contributions from these MVI partners that you see here, who are truly helping to shape and deliver WESP with us. We've had a long-standing collaboration with all of these companies and really taken that to new levels over the past year. A huge thank you. The feedback and collaboration has truly been shaping our journey. Now, today at Ignite, we are lucky to have one of our partners here in the room with us, and I'd like to welcome up Tom Bouathong from Trend Micro. Tom, thanks so much for joining us today, and we're excited to hear from you about the journey we've been on together. From your perspective, can you share a bit about why resiliency is such a critical focus for customers right now?
Yeah, for sure. For myself at Trend Micro, obviously, we use a lot of Windows platforms to do testing, to do development, and all that. But we know that customers are obviously using Windows platforms too. So when we talk about resiliency, it's obviously how organizations really withstand challenges and speed bumps in order, and also achieving those business outcomes. So when I look at it from, let's say, a software vendor perspective, like, it's all about the circle of trust, where a software vendor needs to be able to be ingrained in that circle of trust for the supply chain. And obviously, it takes really one bad update to break that trust, and it's always hard to gain that trust back, and there's no quick fix to recover that.
What are some of the ways in which Trend Micro is helping to improve resiliency for customers today?
We do a lot of rigorous testing on our code before it even reaches our own internal assets. We do things like eating our own dog food. I know it's always a fun term, but we do our testing of our products within our internal groups. So what better way to test out applications than to test with our own internal assets? Outside of that, for customers, we've integrated with using customized software ring deployments. So customers can adopt their own software ring deployments to ensure resilience within their environment.
Yeah, so safe deployment practices already in use by trend for your customers.
Exactly.
Tom, you and your engineering team, you've had a chance to be hands-on with the preview for the Windows Endpoint Security Platform. How are you thinking about moving the security logic from kernel mode to user mode?
This is a good story. I will try to keep it a little short here, Kevin. But before coming to Trend, I was a customer that was really building a lot of on-premise solutions, helping obviously with network stack, endpoint stack, and all that. I was tasked with building a huge infrastructure in the cloud. It's like, oh, this is great. I love this. But obviously, you can't build the same way in the cloud as what you did on-premise. So it opened up a lot of gaps. Let's just say that. But over time, those gaps became kind of creative ways or creative problems or opportunities to solve different issues. So when I look at going to kernel mode to user mode, obviously there's a lot that we have to look at. We have to understand what we can get within the user mode, and then and how it helps us optimize or modernize our endpoint protection platform. So think of it as like we can't use like a kernel mode driver and get that same type of telemetry within that user mode. So now we have to engineer. We have to spend time engineering to get the same outcomes, and it's exciting because it's modernizing the solution, but it's also a little challenging because we want to make sure that we offer the same type of protection, the same type of telemetry within that user mode space now.
And those are challenges that we've been taking on together across our engineering teams. Lastly, Tom, what are the opportunities you see as WESP evolves to deliver even more protection for our customers?
No, this is a good question. So when I look at it, there's three different areas that I see a lot of good benefit. One obviously is being resilient by design, making sure that there's fewer crashes for customers, being able to do those safe rollbacks that we always talk about from an ISV standpoint, but like actually making sure that it's a safer rollback. The second one is going to be that AI era protection. AI is here. Like, it's not just a marketing word now. It is something that we have to really account for. So think of like AI PCs being able to give more guardrails for those customers that are accessing that. Maybe looking at accelerated checks, deepfake detection, whether it's through video, through voice, all these different things. And kind of that third area I wanted to touch on a little bit is more that unified SOC experience. Obviously, there's a lot of different telemetry coming from a lot of different ISVs, Microsoft, Trend Micro, obviously all the other ones. But what's really the issue there? Like, there's a lot of different dashboards, a lot of different tool hopping, and using WESP, I think that we can really start acting faster and really start having that point, the unified solution.
Well, thank you, Tom. We appreciate the partnership with your team at Trend Micro, and it's great to have you here at Ignite. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Now, our efforts to make Windows more resilient are not just about AV drivers. Drivers help deliver so much of what we experience on Windows today, from what you see on your screen to how you're connecting to the Wi-Fi network here in the room. We are working across this broad set of hardware and software partners so that drivers have security and resiliency built in from the start and controls to reduce risk when there is an issue. We mentioned earlier the risk that can come from kernel mode drivers. If something goes wrong there, it can impact the entire OS. And so what we're doing there is reducing the need to be in the kernel. We're giving driver developers tools to light up their hardware and services from user mode. And today, Windows supports user mode drivers for USB devices, fingerprint readers, printers, and we'll be delivering more over time in future releases and encouraging our partners to take advantage of these. We're also taking steps to improve the security of the drivers that do run in the kernel today. With the most recent release of Windows, we added over 100 new security tests that are required for Windows driver certification. These include checks for secure coding practices. And so with these added requirements and automated security analysis tools, developers can find and fix issues before that driver is made available to the customer. Even more, we're enabling driver developers to begin writing their Windows drivers in Rust. Rust offers memory safety guarantees that can eliminate entire classes of bugs. So we're not just fixing and removing the issues at the source, but we're preventing incidents from happening in your environment. And yes, the Windows Endpoint Security Platform we talked about earlier is using Rust as well. Now, we've talked about how we're making new drivers more secure and resilient, but what about if an issue is discovered in one of the drivers in the ecosystem today? Well, Windows 11 addresses this with the vulnerable driver block list. This feature prevents drivers with known vulnerabilities from even running on your device, and is another way in which Windows takes signals from across the broad ecosystem and uses them to prevent incidents at scale without any additional action from you. And the last piece I want to cover here is how we work with driver publishers to keep drivers up to date safely. Our recommendation is clear. Use and publish your updates to Windows Update. That's the same trusted channel that customers get those feature and quality updates from today. And it offers driver developers tools such as flighting and gradual rollouts, as well as real-time insights that will help them quickly spot and fix issues before they can broadly impact customers. We're actively working across our driver ecosystem so that Windows Update is that best place for you to keep your devices and drivers up to date safely. Now, we've covered a lot here, from AV drivers to hardware drivers. And please know that that is a broad effort we are doing with our partners to help keep your devices more secure. We also know resilience is about being ready for anything. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Kristian, who will tell us more about what we're doing for those unexpected days.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you. And I'm going to speed through the management or managing incidents investments we have here, 3 of them, so that we can get to the recovery, which is really where I think that most of the tools that you all should learn about and start figure out how to use. But to manage incidents, when they regrettably occur, you might think after what Kevin said that we won't have any incidents anymore. But I'm sorry to say, folks, with change comes mistakes and new ways of working, and there will be some in the future as well. So the first tool I want to encourage you to look into and consider making available for your users is Windows 365 Reserve. So think of it as a safety net. If a user has a machine that breaks, maybe they dropped it on the floor or in an aquarium, and they call help desk and like, I got to stay productive, you can issue them a Windows 365 Cloud PC really quickly if you have this available. And they can go steal their kid's school iPad or whatever machine they have available and use it from there. Windows has been added to the support offering that we have called Mission Critical Services for Microsoft 365. This is a new support offering that you can opt into if you want to have the option of escalating some issue or question or guidance about some project to get the Windows developers, people who write the code for Windows every day, to get them to engage and look at this. And the third managing incidents tool is the one that can help you avoid showing embarrassing UI that shouldn't be there on public displays. A new digital signage mode that we're adding to Windows. Super easy to turn on. It's just one CSP or one click in settings. In fact, it'll be on by default if you set the display to never turn off, but also through the CSP. And it doesn't replace kiosk mode. Anybody use kiosk mode? Know what it is? Yeah. So the reason we're adding this as an additional thing is because most people don't know about kiosk mode or don't really know how to configure it. So this is a very simple way to make sure that your digital signage won't show Windows screens or error messages. It'll only show the app that you intended to display. So with that, let's talk about recovery tools. Like I said, the world has changed a lot in the 25 years or so since we built the recovery tools that exist. Today we have SSDs, really fast storage compared to the spinning disks that had performance challenges with keeping backup data squirreled away. Cloud backup solutions wasn't a thing back then, and so the recovery tools we have today require a user to go to the machine, maybe plug in a USB stick and manually recover the machine. But obviously today you want to be able to do that from your management tools that you do all other endpoint management from. Also something that enables us to build much simpler and thus more reliable, less complex recovery tools is the fact that there's really no such thing as local machine-only data in most customer environments, because it's all backed up all the time to OneDrive or whatever your solution may be. And so with that, Aaron, you want to join me to go through how our recovery tools are evolving?
I would love to. Good afternoon. I'm Aaron. I work on recovery. And the main thing I'll admit, recovery is tricky today. A lot of help desk calls, building USB install media, running from place to place, plugging stuff in, maybe mailing a new PC to your customers or your users. So it's slow, and really what you want is to get people back to productivity as quickly as possible. So we hear you, and we're on board. So we're here to make recovery easier for outages or malfunctions, and at all scales. So not just a single PC, not just the global incident, but everything in between. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So first question, who knows what this is? A quick show of hands. Yeah? Everybody? Windows recovery environment. We know it and we love it. How many people remove this when you deploy Windows 11? Anybody? Anybody admitting to that? Actually, surprisingly few. That's awesome. So WinRE is a small WinPE-based operating system. It gets preloaded on every Windows 11 PC, and it sits right at the end of the disk, right after the main OS partition. And it's really our safe, secure environment for running recovery operations. Startup repair, push button reset, things like that. And it's really a core part of Windows. It's kept up to date with Windows Update, so it's always current. And this is the foundation for all of the innovation that we're going to talk about today. This is where all the recovery features they run and all the innovation. And so getting to WinRE is pretty easy. Windows fails to boot 3 times, will automatically fail over into WinRE, or you can manually trigger it from the settings app, the recovery settings page, and you can click Advanced Startup. And once you're there, the local user is given a number of options. They can manually click through the menu. It's pretty simple. What we're missing is this ability for remote, at-scale recovery from Windows recovery. And so what we're going to talk about coming up is some improved connectivity, manageability, and then new recovery tools that we're adding into WinRE. So speaking of connectivity, this is super important. It opens up so many possibilities for recovery. WinRE has some limited connectivity today, so unauthenticated Ethernet, simple Wi-Fi networks you'd find at home or at a coffee shop. But what it's missing is support for your commercial environments, and it's also fairly manual. Like you have to go through a Wi-Fi selection screen in WinRE to connect often. So what we're announcing today is we're building a feature that will automatically connect to Wi-Fi profiles provisioned into main OS. So that'll support your 802.1x certificate-based Wi-Fi as well as personal Wi-Fi. And this really just makes the recovery process that much more seamless. You don't need to manage WinRE as a separate entity. You don't have to provision dedicated, you don't have to, you can, but you don't have to provision dedicated Wi-Fi profiles to WinRE. It just works. So once we have recovery, that opens up doors, like I was saying before. And once we have connectivity, I should say, once we have connectivity, now you get features like quick machine recovery. So quick machine recovery was announced last Ignite. It went to public availability in July 2025. And it's available in Windows 11 24H2 and 25H2. And what QMR does is it's really for those like mass scale outages. It allows Windows recovery environment to connect to Windows Update, scan for boot critical updates, if there's any that Microsoft have published, download them and run them and automatically recover your device. So QMR it's enabled by default on unmanaged PCs, but we disable it by default just to give any managed PCs, give the IT admin control. We don't want to just blast down fixes without approval. And that approval, like you can configure QMR from Intune, you can turn it on and off in the settings page, but what we don't offer today are like fine-tuned controls during an outage, just-in-time approvals, for example. So we're announcing quick machine recovery support and auto patch to help close that gap. So QMR will be surfaced in auto patch. Auto patch becomes your unified update management solution. Auto patch gives you approvals, deferrals, ring-based rollout, per device monitoring, observability, as well as alerting. So this really consolidates quick machine recovery alongside your other update management if you're using auto patch. And any auto patch enabled device will have quick machine recovery enabled by default, just to maximize coverage of this feature. And I'm going to do a quick sort of simulated demo for what this looks like. And I say simulated, it's in auto patch support is in private preview. So we're just going to walk through what that would look like in the event of an outage. All right, so you know it's a simulation because there's a big blinking yellow box. That's not a feature, that's a simulation. So here, I'm going to walk through quickly from my auto patch console in Intune. I get to create a quality update policy. You can see a QMR policy. I'll configure it to have manually review and approve QMR fixes. And I'll just quickly go through and approve that policy. So that's something you would do in advance and get, not when an outage is actually happening. All right. Whoops, sorry. Now, here we have a simulated boot failure or crash. So what the device is going to do is it's going to blue screen or black screen now 2 times, and then you'll see it automatically fail over into the Windows recovery environment. Once there, it connects to the internet, connects to Windows Update, and is looking for an approved quick machine recovery fix. And what you're going to see here is we didn't find one because nothing is being approved for this device. So now we'll flip back over into the Intune portal, into the auto patch, and you'll see an alert that a QMR fix is available. The admin can click through, read a little bit about what the fix is, and then they've decided this is great. I'm going to roll this out to my finance ring. So just quickly navigating here, here's the fix that's been detected. They'll manage it. They can, again, read a bit more about it. And then they'll select Finance Ring 1 and 2. And so this is making the fix available to any device that they've placed in those rings. And then you can see, we'll flip back to the device experiencing the boot failures. Because there wasn't a fix available, it's waiting for the user to take action. So at this point, they probably called help desk. Help desk has said, yeah, we've got the fix approved. Just go into WinRE, rescan quick machine recovery, and it'll do the rest automatically. Of course, if you'd already approved the fix, and then before the user hit the crash, then this would happen seamlessly end to end. So attempting repair, great. And now you'll see the device boot back to the desktop. And so it'll be that easy. I mean, so in the event of an outage, you just approve it, and then your users will flow back to a productive state. So quick machine recovery is great for those large-scale outages like I talked about, but those are pretty rare. Really what we need are solutions for the day-to-day, single device malfunctions, malfunctions of a group of your employees or across your company. So I've invited 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 to come talk about how we're recovering at scale and remotely. Thanks.
Thanks, Aaron. So to continue what Aaron was talking about in terms of being able to respond at scale, I'm going to talk about some more of the improvements that we've been building into WinRE for those remote management, those plugin capabilities, and how Intune and Azure Arc and others are going to be able to build on that to allow you to respond, not just for those large-scale newsworthy events that are on the 24/7 ticker on CNN, but who in this room has instance where you have either onesie, twosie devices go into WinRE on a daily basis, and if you're feeling really bold, who might have broken more than 100, 1,000 machines in one go, doing something. Yep, there we go. Thank you, sir. Be bold. When I spoke to a customer about this, when we first started thinking about it, it's like, oh, that'd be great. QMR would solve for when my admin pushed out a whip to production by accident and blue screen 5,000 machines. Yeah, QMR won't fix that, but this will. So when remote recovery is provisioned, WinRE will automatically and securely connect to the management tool that it is registered with. So that might be Intune, that might be Azure for our servers, or third-party MDMs can also build on top of the plugin model. So going time-based, we'll first talk about Azure VM recovery with WinRE. So Azure are building into the VM provisioning extension the ability to, first of all, enable WinRE. I know Aaron asked who removes WinRE when they provision machines. It's great to hear, not many people, but Azure VMs don't have it today. So as part of the changes, when you provision a VM, WinRE will be provisioned. Doesn't increase the provisioning time, but WinRE will be there. And then similarly, when the servers in Azure get into WinRE, they'll be able to connect to Azure in order to download either the QMR fixes or custom PowerShell scripts to be able to target for the remediation. And that's coming soon. Public preview should be in the first half of next year. Moving over to Intune. Similarly, we're building on top of that plugin and some key things to work on. So this is going to be secure. And what will happen when the device gets into WinRE, the plugin will start, and the device will connect to the recovery service that we're building in Intune, and it will be able to identify as the normal device. So what's key here is you're not having to manage an additional record or look for something different. This device will say, hey, this is who I am, and it will use that certificate-based authentication so you know who it is and that you have the trust for pushing out the fixes down. You'll have that fleet-wide visibility for the recovery, and you'll also be able to target for those onesie-twosies or for you to try out the fix if you're creating a custom script or whatever, being able to go test it and make sure that it works remotely before then enabling it at scale. And that should enable you to recover it much quicker and minimize that downtime. Aaron talked a little bit about this, but as you can see, there's a number of tools that we're building on top of the Intune recovery. First one is the quick machine recovery that Aaron talked about. That's going to be in preview very soon via auto patch. Point-in-time restore, which we're going to dig into a little bit more in terms of being able to roll back devices. And then Aaron's going to come back and talk about some stuff that's a little bit further out with cloud rebuild and the ability to reinstall a machine if it's really, truly broken. So the one that we're announcing today is point-in-time restore and the integration into Intune. This allows you to roll back to a snapshot that was taken on the device prior to whatever incident happened that caused it to get into that boot issue. And it improves upon, who's familiar with system restore? Used to be a thing in Windows. I certainly remember when I was younger using it in older versions of Windows. And this improves on that. It uses the same volume snapshot capabilities, but rather than it being erratic kind of event-based, it's a purely time-based system of taking snapshots of a user's device, being able to then roll back. It does the full disk. So we have all of the user data and everything ready to go, and it means that you can restore within minutes when you need to roll back a device. And there's going to be built-in policies for cleaning up so that we don't bloat the device hard drive. We use the system reserve partition where we can, so we really minimize the impact to the end user. Let's have a quick demo. Again, this is a simulator demo. So this is currently in development, and you'll see kind of the video game style, actual implementation may look slightly different. And I'm on number 2. So here I am again on my end user PC. I've got that same flashing thing that Aaron saw that's going to cause a boot issue. And then what you're going to see is that exact same thing that we saw on Aaron's device. This is the exact same behavior today with how a device gets into WinRE. It'll try to boot. It'll hit the issue again. The device will reboot. It'll hit the issue again, and on the third attempt, it'll get into WinRE. However, you'll notice this now looks different to what that first screenshot that Kristian had of everyone's familiar with, that beautiful Windows 8 era blue interface. The user will now just see that the device is provisioned for Intune recovery, and it will immediately go into a waiting state. It's effectively waiting for that instruction from the admin. That might be QMR if it's a global event, but this we're looking at the more onesie-twosie. So we're going to wait for the instruction or whatever action the admin is going to push down. Flipping over to the Intune portal, we're going to start by looking at the dashboard. So having information about what state your estate is in is super important. And if I start on the far right-hand side, you see the preparedness state. This is kind of an insurance policy. You need to configure it before the incident happens. Once the incident's happened, it's too late to go configure it. So this is you being able to tell what's my preparedness for the environment. So you'll see, is the device ready? Is WinRE managed? Maybe WinRE is there, but the device is in provision and we've not loaded the plugin and the certificate. And then in terms of the devices that are in recovery, on the left, you then see the devices that are sat in WinRE. The goal here is that this is always 0. But maybe it's not today, and we see that we've got some devices in the recovery state. And then in the middle, you see the devices that have attempted a recovery. Hopefully, again, that's going to be, yeah, all successful, but maybe they failed because whatever action failed and it ended up back in WinRE. We'll also surface that here. If I click through, and you can see this is now my list of devices, and you can see I just see the name of the device, exactly the same identity that you would see for the device normally. These are my devices that are sat in WinRE. So if I select that one, and I'm going to do that point-in-time restore, and you can see I have a number of snapshots to recover from. If anyone's using Windows 365, this experience might be very, very similar to you. Windows 365 already has a point-in-time restore that's VM-based rather than the volume snapshot-based, but it's exactly the same concept, and we have borrowed heavily from that existing UX. So I can select the most recent, because that was taken before. I'm going to hit restore. And then we go back, and you see now that snapshot is reverting. And we're going to boot back into Windows, and everything is going to be happy. And with that, I'll invite Aaron back on stage to come talk about some future stuff of Cloud Rebuild.
I'm super excited about point-in-time restore. It should be in private, it should be an insider build, the next insider build for Windows 11 that goes out. So I hope you all try it. And now we're talking about Cloud Rebuild. So point-in-time restore, we hope it's used for all sorts of different malfunctions, recovers super quick. Sometimes you just need to start fresh, start from scratch. And so what we're announcing today is the ability to trigger a Cloud Rebuild. This will clean install Windows 11 and any drivers from Windows Update. So this is something that you can trigger from when the device is in WinRE or also just in main OS. So you could push down from Intune a policy that says Cloud Rebuild. And as an admin, you can define what OS release you're going to, what OS version you're going to, and the languages. And then Cloud Rebuild will automatically get all the matching drivers for that device, bring them down, and do a clean install. So we think it's super powerful for just getting to a clean slate. And it will land the user back in the out-of-box experience, or 𝗬𝗲𝗄𝐵e. And once there, they enter their Entra ID, Autopilot takes over, reprovisions the device for Intune, Intune pushes the apps down. Backup for organizations will then restore their settings. That's a feature that GA'd, I think, in August. And then, of course, OneDrive has all your files. So after the rebuild, the user's back up and running, got all their state, settings, apps, ready to get productive again. So just to recap, we've got 4 new recovery capabilities that we talked about today. Managing quick fixes with auto patch for QMR, remote NatScale management through Intune recovery, send your devices back in time with point-in-time restore, and then start from scratch with Cloud Rebuild. And with that, I will hand over back to Kristian to wrap us up.
Thank you, Aaron. So that's a lot of new stuff. I hope it sounds promising, both in terms of preventing incidents, making it a little easier to manage them if they do occur, and then recovering quickly if they occur. That's next steps for you. I think for preventing incidents, a good thing to start thinking about is asking your hardware and software vendors, do you really need these kernel mode drivers? Could you maybe reduce, why aren't you writing some of this in user mode, which is perfectly possible for many things that run in the kernel today. When you buy a hardware, a new laptop, why does it have as many drivers on it as it does? In many cases, the drivers might be there for historical reasons, and there might very well be a driver shipping with Windows developed by Microsoft and updated by Microsoft that would work just fine for many things that have a custom driver. So I encourage you to have that conversation with your application and hardware vendors. For the management of incidents, consider which of the tools seem valuable. If you do, run public displays driven by Windows. I highly encourage you to make sure when we release, it's only announced so far, but when we release the digital signage mode, make sure it's on there. We've done everything to make it turn on by default and be just like hard to avoid, but we don't want to see any more restaurant menus or airport gate screens or what have you showing anything Windows in the future. And for the recovery tools, you heard that some of them are in preview. Some of them are GA already, and some of them are still coming. So it's over the next 6 months or so, there'll still be some more previews for GA. But start planning for which of these you want to ensure that you have available in your environment. If QMR sounds like a good thing, it's already GA today, and you can manage it through AutoPatch. So if you don't have AutoPatch and you want to be able to manage QMR, maybe get on the AutoPatch train. And next step, obviously, the Intune remote recovery control, even for machines that can't boot. Being able to remotely tell a machine, roll yourself back 48 hours, or rebuild yourself with this release of Windows and these languages in this edition. Download everything from the cloud, nothing local. So with that, thank you so much. If you have questions, we'll be right outside the room or at the show floor later. We really appreciate your attention.